Angelos and Tom from Global.
I realised this morning I'm wearing exactly the same clothes as in, I wasn't taken this morning. So firstly, well, thank you for joining us. I know there's other sessions going on at the same time, so we appreciate you coming to watch ours. We're talking about audio everywhere, measurement everywhere. I'm Tom, I'm the Commercial Director for DAX Audio at Global, and we're going to be talking about some of the changes to the digital audio ecosystem, how they've impacted how digital audio is measured, and then what we've been doing to help the industry overcome some of those challenges. And over the last 10 to 12 years, the digital audio ecosystem has changed quite significantly. Digital audio has gone from an emerging channel to a very much emerged channel. That means more listening and also more advertising expenditure. If you go back to autumn 2013, 15.4 million people listen to digital audio every week. That's now, as of autumn 2023, up to 34 million. If you go back to 2012, advertising expenditure in terms of millions in digital audio rounded down to 0. If you go to 2022, which is the last full year we have data for, it's up to 186 million. So significant growth. We still believe underinvested, and lots of people have mentioned that today as well. It's not just more people are listening and that more money is being spent. There's also the changes in listening habits. So you go back, as I said, 10 to 12 years. There were two main listening environments with scale. They were radio streaming and music streaming. And there were two main devices, really, with scale. They were desktop and mobile. Fast forward to today, and you've got at least 5 channels or environments. We kind of use them interchangeably. We've got the proliferation of listening devices. The most notable of those is smart speakers. So smart speakers went from not really being a thing in 2015 to accounting now being the second largest consumption device in terms of both reach and hours. And there's also been significant change, regulatory and technological. So we've got more environments than ever before, more devices than ever before, and we've had changes like GDPR, Apple tracking transparency, third-party cookies. That means, yes, the ecosystem is more diverse, but it's also a lot more complex than it used to be. And that means that digital audio has become harder to measure, specifically when we're talking about conversion and performance. But arguably, it's more important than ever before that we are measuring conversion and performance in digital audio. We believe that. Measurement was the #1 topic at last year's Future of Audio conference, as voted for by everyone viewing. And it's important that there's holistic measurement across all channels. So not just being able to measure a campaign, but being able to measure all environments in that campaign and being able to measure all devices in that campaign, both at a deduped view, so how does my campaign perform, but also then what role does each environment and device play in driving performance? So holistic measurement across all audio channels. We feel well placed to be able to help on that. We've been measuring digital audio in the UK now for over 10 years. And ultimately, we want to help advertisers understand their campaign performance across all environments and across all channels, because that's the objective that the industry has set to us. We feel well placed because back in 2016, we launched Listener Insight ID. That was the first tool of its kind at the time to be able to directly link somebody hearing a digital audio ad and then visiting through to that same advertiser's website. Since then, over 470 advertisers have used Listener Insight ID. They've come to rely on it for understanding how their campaigns perform. They've come to rely on it for making optimizations to improve their campaign performance. But we need to replace Listener ID. It's nearly 8 years old. So when looking at replacing Listener Insight ID, there's a few things we need to tick off as part of a measurement solution. It needs to be robust and scalable. That's kind of hygiene for a measurement solution. It has to be able to deliver the same conversion insights that Listener ID could deliver. As I said, over 470 advertisers have used Listener ID, and that's because the conversion insights are extremely useful. So we didn't want to rip that up and start again. But we couldn't use unique IDs. We didn't want to use unique IDs, and that's cookie IDs and mobile ad IDs. And critically, has to be able to measure all environments and all devices, deduped at a campaign level and in isolation. And it is important to still look at it in isolation because you want to be able to see which devices are driving my overall deduped conversion rate. So today, we're very excited to introduce you to DAX ID, not launching DAX ID because we're launching DAX ID on the 30th of April at an event. Hopefully lots of you are invited to that. So introducing DAX ID to you is a little bit of a sneak peek. And we want to make sure that DAX ID is as actionable as possible. So, sorry, skipped over slide. So DAX ID is our conversion measurement tool for a post-cookie world. It allows us to go, these groups of people were exposed to the advertising, visited the advertiser's website. And we break it down into 3 main groups. So who heard the advertising, providing insights on that group, who heard the advertising and visited the advertiser's website, providing insights on that group, and then who visited the advertiser's website but at no point was exposed to the advertising. And by comparing them, we can then help prove performance. So when we're then looking at what kind of insights do we provide as part of DAX ID, we want them to be as actionable as possible. So there's a few different ways we need to be able to cut the data to make sure we're giving our partners what they need. Looking at conversion and performance by audience and creative, so you can optimize based upon that. Time, day, and frequency, and optimize based on that as well. And then looking at on-site engagement. And this is the kind of information that advertisers were used to with Listener ID. There's 2 core things we're introducing with the launch of DAX ID, and you can probably guess what they are from the intro. We want to be able to measure every single device. That's never been possible before in the digital audio ecosystem, at a deduped campaign view, and then looking at the role each device plays in driving that deduped performance. And across every single environment. Again, that's not been possible before because of the limitations around cookie IDs and mobile ad IDs, but we know it is critically important. So, to tell you a bit more about how DAX ID works, I will hand over to Angelos.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I am Angelos. I'm the Director of Decision Sciences at Global. I'm the boffin usually in the dungeons, so today I'm out. You can see the sunshine, it's all good. Right, thank you, that was welcoming. So let's start with the process and how it works. And it all begins with the listener being exposed to an ad through the listener, through our DAX audio platform. When we do that, we also identify what is the DAX ID for that listener, and then we look in our client's data for that. That is data of web and app engagement, and we're trying to match that DAX ID between the exposed data set and the client data set. And no cookies have been exploited in this process. So how does it work? How does DAX ID allow us to do that? DAX ID is effectively a combination of non-personal and not cookie-dependent identifiers. The primary component is the IP address, and the IP address is a numerical code that's been assigned to every device when it accesses the internet through a network. And for us in that context is effectively the post address of that device. The second component is called user agent. It's a bit less known, and it's been used from web developers and app developers in order to optimize the layout of what they're building for a given device. And effectively what it allows them to do is understand what is that device that is visiting their apps. So what information do we get with user agent? We can get the make of a device, we can get the model of that device, the operating system of that device, we can even get the web browser or the version of that web browser. And what it does for us, it's basically an enrichment parameter to the IP address. And these 2 things combined is what is DAX ID. And for us, it's a very good proxy for a listener. Now, very important, this is a proxy for a listener. In a world without cookies, with no personal identifiers, we need to be able to use proxies and not deterministic match. Let me give you an example as to why IP and user agent work very well together. Let's assume we have 2 people in the same house, most probably sharing the same IP address, and both of them are going to hear a DAX ad. One of them has an iPhone 11 and ends up visiting the client web page. The other one has an iPhone 12 and opts not to visit the client web page. If we were doing this match based on IP, we would convert both of those exposed impressions into a conversion to a web page. In reality, though, we only know it's one. So effectively, when we have IP and user agent together, we're able to account for multiple devices in the same network. We gain a sense of uniqueness without using cookies and respecting privacy laws. And what it gives us, by way of capturing the data and the level of granularity that we have in the data, it allows us to provide more insight analysis to our advertisers about the conversions, breaking it down by environment and device. Now, we said that this is not a deterministic approach, so it's not unique. So what we need to do is a bit more work to make sure that our matching engine is as best as possible and as accurate when it comes to its attribution. Global, as Tom said, has been leading the way in audio conversion, and we had listener side ID for quite a while. And that's quite powerful for us, because what it allows us to do, it gives us more than 1,300 campaigns worth of data, 16 billion data points. And the cool thing about those data points is it doesn't only have user agent and IP together, but it also has the cookie ID. And that's the magic. Cookie ID is actually a very deterministic way. So it allows us to be able to model and put all these things into our modeling engines with my data science team, who is very good, by the way. Thank you. And what we're trying to do is basically we're optimizing our matching engine's parameters, and that is optimizing attribution windows and cross-device factors, making this as accurate as it can be in this new brave world without cookies. Now, when we set out to do this with the team, we wanted to achieve 5 criteria of success. It needs to be future-proof, so no cookie dependence. It needs to be robust in terms of serving all environments, as Tom said, and all devices. It needs to be scalable, and by scale we mean we need to apply this to 100% of our exposed impressions, and clearly it needs to be overly accurate when it comes to conversion. Now, 8 years ago, we did launch DAX ID. Market leading at the time, we acknowledge it's not fit for purpose. It's based on cookies. It cannot serve all environments, not all devices. Its scale is going down by the day, and it's going to get worse. Another one can say that it's the actual one way of creating deterministic match. Because of the scale, statistically, good word, it's not very robust anymore. There are solutions in the market that are IP-based, and these do tick a lot of boxes. But as we said in our example, it makes a bit attribution more difficult to achieve. And what we believe we have in DAX ID is a future-proof tool that is scalable, that is robust, and we're very proud to present this to our advertisers and to our clients. Tom.
Cool, thank you. So as Angelos said, incredibly robust. What does this mean for our advertisers? Well, we are no longer measuring a small sample of campaigns. We're measuring entire campaigns across all environments and all devices, providing the best insights possible back. And our response windows are more accountable. We're using 2 data points to make that match, and we have 60 billion data points that we've then used to make sure we can validate that match via modeling and calibration. That means it's accountable, it's accurate, and as I mentioned earlier, we've tried to make it as actionable as possible. So the results you get back are useful, and we can make optimizations to improve campaign performance moving forward. But we'll go back to that original objective. It was holistic measurement across all channels, and that was really what we set out to achieve. With DAX Audio and DAX ID, we can run across all channels, all devices. We can measure all of those channels and devices at a deduped campaign level, and also look at what role do those environments and devices play in driving that deduped campaign performance. We know in the past that performance has been limited to channel specific, so you could end up with 3 results for the same campaign, and it then becomes very difficult to understand, well, how did my overall campaign perform? That's no longer the case. So to give you an example of this, we worked with our partners in the testing phase at Essence Mediacom and EE. They ran a campaign where it was going across all devices, all environments. Not only were we able to report back on the conversion rate, it was around the 1.5% mark, and that was across, as I said, all environments and all devices, but we could then look at, well, which environments were helping contribute to that conversion rate. So for the first time ever, we were able to provide insights back, like DAX Gaming, powered by our partners at Odeo, delivered a 50% higher conversion rate than the overall campaign. So that is something we can then optimize to moving forward to help drive further performance and improve that deduped overall conversion rate. We also saw that the campaign was, yes, driving people through to site, but actually once on site, users that had been driven via DAX were twice as likely to reach the target campaign page. So we measured the campaign, it had an exceptional response rate. We were able, for the first time ever, to be able to provide insight on why that response rate performed so well and optimize to it moving forward. And not only were we driving people to site, we were driving them to the right parts of the site compared to control traffic. So in summary, we knew the market needed to change. That was very clear last year, and the market has changed, and measurement needed to change with it. We can now measure all environments and all devices, deduped and in isolation, and that was really what people were asking for last year, and it's something that we now feel like we can help the industry deliver on. And major UK brands are now reaping the benefits of that level of insight that has really never been possible before in digital audio. As I said, thank you all for watching. That's the end of our presentation.